there have been 12 round Australia trials. The 1979 Repco Reliability Trial was the fastest, the toughest, and in terms of time, terrain and distance, the most awesome motorsport event the world has ever known. At Melbourne Showground on the overcast Sunday of August 5th, some of the world's finest rally drivers began an 18,000-kilometre journey to the fringe of human endurance.
Well, the car's good. You know, the car has been tried and tested in these past long-distance events, and you know, I think the Citroen is maybe not the quickest car in the event, but it's certainly very reliable and very strong.
I'm interested that you've got Rauno in the car with you. Who's number 1 and number 2 driver? Have you worked that out?
Well, I think we worked it out as about 1.5 each. It depends who bends the car first.
Ford's 3-car Cortina team was led by the immensely versatile Colin Bond. His crews included the brilliant Greg Carr and George Fury.
Well, I think we've got a very good chance, because I honestly feel the event's going to be won by the drivers, and I feel that we've got the cream of the rallying world in our team, put it that way, from Australia. And the cars are extremely good. They've been designed to take the roughness of the outback, and I think just keep on going for the 20,000 kilometres, and that's what we hope to do.
Controlling the Commodore team was George Shepherd.
I think that we've put the best thing on them we can, and I believe our chances are very good, and now it's all up to the drivers to do the right thing.
Volvo had 5 cars, including Australian rally champion Ross Dunkerton.
We'll always like to win, but if we can get into the first 20 by West Australia, we'll be quite happy.
They came from everywhere. German crews in Porsches and factory Audis. Americans in Chevy Blazers and Ford trucks. Veterans like Bob Watson in the only diesel car in the event. And in a Holden dealer team Commodore, the vastly experienced Barry Ferguson. Even 1954 Red X winner Jack Murray was there in a Commodore. That day, 167 cars rolled out of Melbourne. Only 92 returned 2 weeks later. And of those, only 12 covered the entire route.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Less than 100 kilometres from the start, the field was flung into a rough and savage special stage near the small Victorian hamlet of Tupac.
2, 1, go!
The times through this 48-kilometre section set the running order of the field. They had 39 minutes to do it in. In cars they hardly knew, there was no time to settle in. It was truly a case of the devil take the hindmost.
Fairly slippery. It's all right.
A long-distance rally is a mixture of flat-out, dry-mouthed kamikaze acts over tracks that the average driver would never dream of using, and long, wearing top-speed hauls over enormous, shimmering distances. In that first 48 kilometres at Tubarak, 3 crews wrote off dreams that had cost them a year at maybe $20,000.
Bit of exercise for you.
Another one.
Now, can you move up a little, please?
I remember going up through from Mount Gambier in about the first grassy lane, short section, and struggling through there, a lot of wheel spin and keeping the car very correct and what have you, and made it on time. And I got up to the end, and the local farmer came up to me and said, "What's it like back there?" And I said, "Very slippery." I said, "After the first half a dozen cars, there's no way known cars are going to get through there." So he said, "Well, I think I might take the Fergie down there and hunk a chain and so we can earn a few bucks." And I believe he did so.
As the Repco trial staggers into Renmark on this first morning, heavy rain and deep sand up along the South Australian border have decimated the field. The top 15 cars, including the 3 Team Commodores and the 3 Cortinas, have got away from the rest. Andrew Cowan was bogged 3 times, and Volvo's Ross Dunkerton is having suspension problems. But at this stage, young Shepparton driver Jeff Portman has taken an early lead. Steve Jonas for 3XY.
We set out at 2 break to clean up that section and get car 1 on the road, because we thought that last night might be dusty and sandy, and as it turned out it was wet and boggy, and in all it was the best we could have done.
Volvo's managing director Harry Jensen struck trouble early.
Ah, well, we've got to sell a few spare parts sometimes. And I seems to be the only one who is using spare parts. Well, have we got a mechanic here?
And it was only the start of an appalling fortnight for Ross Dunkerton.
One of the shock absorbers actually snapped in half and the back spring jumped out, and in the process we got bogged, so we got towed out by a 4-wheel drive, and we jacked it up, and it slipped off the jack, and I got my hand caught between the spring and the car, but it's not broken anyway.
That afternoon, in the forests near Adelaide, the professionals started to apply the pressure. As expected, they were much faster than the backmarkers, who got the worst of the roads. After only 24 hours, the field was spread over 1,000 kilometres of country. Dunkerton's differential failed. But the home-built $5,000 Volkswagen Special of the Perkins brothers was up there with them. Adelaide was the first rest break. 12 hours for the leaders, none for the back markers. Ahead lay 4,700 kilometres to Perth, with only 62 hours to do it in. They had to average 90 kilometres an hour up through South Australia, fighting for the fastest time over the rocky creek beds and gravel. Holden team driver Wayne Bell.
We had a flat tyre. It held us up for about 4 or 5 minutes. It's been fairly rough. Probably the roughest section we've had in the rally so far.
You dropped points there?
Yes, we've dropped points. I don't know exactly how many, but it'd be somewhere in the vicinity of probably 15 minutes, something like that.
5, 4, 3, 2.
But the Perkins brothers and their VW were still in the first 10. Backyard special against the pros.
Still going. Had any trouble with it?
No, we had a puncture in the first section, but only trouble was a bit of dust this section. And the The first 50 kilometres was too fast for us. We lost too much time on the fast section, but we made a lot of ground up in the middle.
How are you going to go in the open country across to the west?
Well, the open country, if it's flat out, it's no good at all. We're stuffed after about 100 kilometres.
Can you stay competitive through the whole event?
We certainly try and, yeah.
It had become a Ford Holden fight as they headed for Broken Hill. Ahead lay a long and lonely night drive across the bottom of Lake Eyre, through desolation, dotted with names like Coobapedy, Maree, Lee Creek.
Well, this is the stage in the rally now where they start going into very long distances. For instance, they're doing runs of 600 odd kilometres without fuel or service stops. They're carrying maximum fuel loads of about 46, 47 gallons. And what we're actually doing now is putting a spring in the back, which we have specially made to take the extra load of fuel, which is about ½ inch higher. And that means that hopefully that'll save the car a bit more.
We're very happy. I think now we're at Broken Hill, and all we've been running since we left Adelaide, I feel, was what we thought the rally was going to be all about. In other words, very rough, very tight, no time for servicing, and it's just going to be on from, here on in.
Yeah, the worst is over now. Supposedly, the next 7,000, 8,000 miles is desert. That's what we like.
That night, Brock almost ended it all.
Coming up the Birdsville track, I hit a big ditch in the road, and the car left the ground, virtually skidded along on the bull bar for about 100 odd metres, and I could just look at the road in front of me. Virtually, if it had dug in, it would have ended up the road, cartwheeled up the road. And it didn't, it just landed, bounced back in the air and just kept on bouncing until I finally virtually came to rest off the edge of the road in the salt bush, still in top gear, still doing 40 or 50 kilometres an hour, steered back onto the road. I thought, well, that could be the end of the rally. The fan's got to be through the radiator. So I put the car into neutral and revved it up a bit. No funny sounds. Went through all the gears. They worked all right. Okay. Opened up the doors, closed each one, and the body shell was still intact. No draft holes in the floor or anything silly like that. And so I just put it into second gear and flattened it. And that's the last thing I remembered about it. Just right.
By daylight, the Perkins VW had rolled. A works Audi had retired, the Fords were in trouble, and the Nullarbor plane was beckoning a bony finger. The field was stretched over 30 hours behind, with broken cars as milestones. Crews were stranded for hours with all their tyres blown, or clutches full of sand, or suspension smashed. In many ways, it was still a game, grown men playing with their toys. But on the Nullarbor, it all became terribly serious. For the first time, the crews realized what a huge, relentless landscape they dared to challenge.
Incredibly rough country over the Nullarbor during the night has dramatically changed the face of the Repco trial. Colin Bond has gone into the lead, with Portman stranded near Nullarbor after blowing 7 tyres. But Bond's 2 Ford teammates, Fury and Carr, have suspension worries as the field heads for Perth, with the Commodores 2nd and 3rd. Steve Jonas for 3XY.
They were almost across Australia, near the end of a terrible 2 days and 2 nights. Perth beckoned, with a promised 12-hour rest, but not before a last super-fast stage at Narrogin. At Perth, the order was the Bond Cortina, the Ferguson Commodore, Brock's Commodore, Carr's Cortina, Fury's Cortina, the Johnson Volvo, Cowan and the Citroen, Portman's Datsun, and the Meta Commodore. The story is unfolding. Some crews have worked their cars too hard, and ahead are many long nights north of Perth.
Drama. We were very unfortunate to have two punches in a 360k section, I think it was, and we only carried two spares, and of course that used both of them, and we had to do about 200 kilometres with no spare tyres, so we took it very, very steady, and hence we lost a lot of time.
We'll try and organise something so that it is secure and away from the general public.
Well, a piece of cardboard and razor tape would probably solve it tonight anyway.
Now we turn north, up the edge of the teal-green sea where the Dutch first found Australia. White sandy tracks through Bracken. The kilometres unrolling towards the future rich in minerals, fabled land of the old Spanish maps. But in that morning's dawn, the Repco trial had all changed for Portman, Bond, and the Holden dealer team.
Well, the first stage was at the West Australian road racing circuit, which is Wanneroo. We were 2 minutes late getting there because we had a bit of work to do on the car. But very surprising, the first car in front of us was Portman, who should have been a long way ahead. He should have been at least 10 minutes. When we took off on the road racing circuit, we noticed a car pulled off on the left-hand side in the sand, which I thought was Portman. When we got to the end of the stage, we found that it was Portman. We haven't seen him since. The next section was very, very rough, up from Lansland and up along the coast through the sand dunes. In there, we passed one of the Cortinas going very slow, and the Commodore of Shokamata and Rano Altonen. Now, before that, we also saw Colin Bond, who had rolled over. He was all right. The car was fairly extensively damaged. I don't know whether or not it will be going again. Greg Carr has also disappeared, so I don't know where the Fords are at this stage.
Portman had rolled, and the three Cortinas were being repaired in a Geraldton garage. But it was 4,800 kilometres from Perth to Darwin, and time waited for no man as they headed for the Hammersleys.
Attack on the Repco trial appears to be getting a little ragged round the edges. Colin Bond is battling his way through the Western Australian wilderness with practically no service support, his engine sagging on the steering rack. Teammate Greg Carr has had front suspension worries since Perth, and George Fury has had pretty bad engine problems. Now the Commodores are running first, second and fifth, with Andrew Cowan fighting his way up through the field into third place. Steve Jonas for 3XY.
Night comes again, and with it the loneliness and the dread, and the roads that would chop many cars into grist for the wrecking mills. Now, for the first time, they are in country never before used in a motoring event, where legends are 20,000 years old and European man is still alien. Here it was the car that had to survive. If the human could only hold out against his own filthy weariness, the gummy lips and the gritty eyelids, and the agony of concentrating for hour after maddening hour, day after dreadful day. By dawn, the Commodores were long gone through this country and were hours ahead of the field.
10 minutes is a couple of flat tyres, and it's so easy to get a flat tyre. I don't know how you get a flat tyre and how you don't get a flat tyre. I went through that the very bad section there, and honestly, I hit a rock so hard with the left-hand front wheel, you could see the tube, it didn't go flat. I thought, oh, this is my section. You know, another one, so I was so careful, got a flat, and I thought, what did I do wrong? Didn't even remember hitting anything.
Haven't got much time. Got in service.
The novice portman had looked into the face of failure. So too had Audi works driver Achim Warmbold.
I was very confident first row of the car when I was before the start, because factory engineers say almost promised me no problem and all that, and now we found many problems during the event. The rally, I think, I think for me, I'm rallying now 10 years professional rallying. I think it's the toughest event I've ever seen. But it's tough, but very good, I think.
But Andrew didn't pass you when...
No, we passed Andrew when he was stopped. They had the one wheel off and repairing it, and we saw a lot of oil before that.
Ooh, how far back was that?
Section before this, the rough one.
For Andrew Cowan, the world's finest long-distance driver, his Citroen's troubles had begun. The Cortinas were crumbling, lost and alone. A series of long, lonely hauls across the dark side of the moon into brightly lit oases of chatter and interrogation.
Where's the others?
Just coming. We just
went on a bit. Right.
This was the worst night yet. Over incredibly harsh country fit only for four-wheel drive. Sleep was minutes snatched on a jerking, thumping, banging mattress of dirty clothes and lumpy spare parts.
Hello!
Ahead lay the top of Australia, but the perpetual enemy was still time and the car-breaking landscape. How long to Darwin? First, you must average 100 kilometers an hour of a country that changes from rutted mining tracks to saltbush, to giant termite mounds, and finally, the bitumen. That long lifeline built during the war to join the South to the top end. They were back now in a part of Australia that had known the first Red X trials. They were coming into Darwin.
I was very, very pleased personally to have reached Darwin, which was almost like a milestone. You know, I thought if you can reach Darwin, you know, we've done a pretty good job in this rally. But the thought was always in the back of your mind, here we are, we've gone through all this, and we're only halfway. It's an awful long way to go.
I know. We said we'll never wear those shorts. I'll tell you what I was driving on this morning, the shorts are going to make them...
Look at him!
Congratulations! Kept up the name of South Africa, eh? 6 years, man. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. See you later. I said he was just thinking. I told him when he saw you, he recognized you.
I asked him to do the travel was to get me from there.
The best thing for relaxation is 3 days off. We can't afford that.
Well, really, I think that the rot set in with me after we rolled the car just after Wanneroo, and trying to stay competitively and not lose as much time, we, just persevered with the car. When looking back on it now, possibly I should have stopped and fixed it properly, because one thing led to another, and we sort of stayed behind the 8 ball from then on in. But we had a very badly smashed broken windscreen, which we couldn't see through, and then I hit a bad rock in the very next stage and put the conrod hitting the sump problem, and then one thing just led to another.
After 14 hours rest in Darwin, they began the long haul east and south through swamplands and bull dust to Townsville. As if to teach them that there is no rest for the wicked, after Darwin, the 17 cars that had covered all the event were flung straight into yet another special stage. Behind them, some up to 40 hours behind, came the 110 cars still left, although they had missed entire stages. You hit a sandy creek bed too fast and down you went, to work like dogs, brass-tongued and heaving in the gritty heat to get the car going. As the field headed into Queensland, the Commodores were running 1, 2, 3. Andrew Cowan was 42 minutes behind in 4th place when he wrecked his gearbox and retired near Pine Creek. That stage saw the end to of Colin Bond and his Cortina. It had become a battle against luck and against blinding bull dust and bent rims and wandering stock and blown tyres and dry river crossings a kilometre wide. Behind the big teams, the semi-private entrants like Rowney, Nalder, Davis and Loader were fighting on. By now there was a common goal and the shared determination to defy the monsters of crippling tiredness and awful luck, just so they could finish. And so they came that night to Burketown, on the edge of the Gulf, through endless blinding bull dust that rolled up over the windscreens like surf, to a place so strange that it seemed sane in all this craziness, even to the exhausted Dunkerton team who were keeping their Volvo together with little more than grim determination.
I reckon you would have paid us to come through all this.
Say that again, please. A little bit louder.
You should be paying us what we just came through.
Well, that's well said. I think we should be too. Dunkelton, D-U-N-K-L-E?
All the spelling's down on the side there. Scratch Colin Young and write in his place, Jeff with the G. Jones.
How about addresses?
What's your address? You've got to be kidding.
At Burketown, the 3 Holden team Commodores were well in the lead, but haunted by the spectre of 3 very competitive and expert crews who all wanted to win. On the 9th morning, the field started stumbling into Mount Isa.
Been second car on the road, and the bull dust has been terrible.
It must be terrible
Unbelievable.
for the people after you, though.
I'd hate to think what it's like for some of the back markers. It'd be dreadful.
It was crazy. The horror section, we came in an hour and a half early. And the next horror section, which was supposed to be really bad, we were an hour early. Then we just went and lost 12 points on the transport. Don't ask me how it happens. It just cut your throat when that happens.
Oh, we've hit the sump with a rock that was hidden in the grass, and it pushed the steering rack up on the sump guard and just squashed the. Yeah, you can take the car. Squashed the sump guard up and the steering rack up against the sump, and so it's hitting the side of the sump now, the crank.
Yeah, complete back axle. Shock absorbers, springs, spacers. As soon as we get a chance, we'll put another gearbox in it. And the motor's being overhauled now at the moment. So there's plenty of work to be done. It's just been very, very hectic, that's all. Super hectic.
There were many backmarkers who had chosen to cut across country rather than face the terrible roads and the nightmare loneliness.
We made this far.
The real problem was that the event never left you alone. There was always a creek crossing, or cattle, or kangaroos, or the unexpected washaway, or those damn gates, all the way. The route was laid down chapter and verse in absolute detail, where the road went and where the gates and the danger spots were. But by now, after 13,000 kilometers, it was mostly a case of a crew going quietly crazy inside a car that was slowly dying.
Repco trial today are battling through lush green country for the first time since they left Melbourne. Everybody is asking the question whether the Commodore team can finish 1, 2, 3, or whether the fiercely competitive professionals aboard will break their cars. Only Greg Carr is left of the Ford Challenge, and he's well behind, just as is the courageous Ross Dunkerton in his Volvo. Steve Jonas for 3XY.
Outside Rockhampton, the Repco organisers tried again to rip time points from the tired crews with yet another fast special stage. But time was running out as the Cortinas and Volvos and Datsuns tried to get minutes back from the three Commodores marching majestically away. 1, 2, 3. Reality returned with the bitumen. Here was traffic, speed limits, and worst of all, the danger of a drop in concentration or an accident caused by a non-competitor. As conditions became easier, it became harder to get back points that had been lost somewhere back around Kingunya or Renmark.
As the Repco trial field drove into a huge crowd at the Brisbane Control today, Holden team manager George Shepherd said the event would be decided like a normal trial. He told me that his only instructions were to get the 3 cars home.
I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, George Shepherd's got a big problem on his hands. He's got 2 cars that have come around Australia and they've got about 5 minutes between them, and we don't want to race our cars. We're trying to say to each other, look, you going to take it easy? Yeah. I know. So, you know, one gets out there and goes, and of course you look at the score sheet and say, hang on, head his foot down a bit, so the next time you go, oh, it's difficult stuff.
The car was only built very shortly before the rally started, and I guess we've done most of our testing as the rally's progressed, and I think up to Mount Isa was basically testing, and from Mount Isa on it's been the way it should go.
Now, for the last 3 days, came the last nightmare. A jigsaw puzzle of forest tracks and city traffic, with Jeff Portman losing all hope by rolling the stanza a second time near Kempsey, and Greg Carr driving like a man possessed to try and catch the conquering Commodores. The crews, desperately tired, were fighting with their concentration levels. Some of them learned to pray again. In this business, luck can wipe you out with a snap of the fingers.
Well, we're just going to aim to make sure that this motor car finishes in Melbourne, and it's one of the first 3 cars home. We don't care what the order is, and I think the same goes for the other 2 motor cars. We've got the 3 of them this far, and surprised ourselves that on its first outing the cars have been so good. So Melbourne is only a hop away now, and we'd like to be able to do the same thing, and I think we can.
Down through Canberra, down over the snow and through the mountain ash, towards the pine forests and the last day of battle, we watch this last magnificent demonstration of man's ability to dominate the motor car. The device he designed so long ago and which has now come to dominate him, except in the company of heroes like these. The Repco, like the Red X's before it, taught us that in this time when man has become the victim of his own technology, he can still master this creature of his own device. It was over. The Commodores had done the impossible. For these 9 men, there will probably never be another day like this. For the 92 crews that finished, anything afterward would always seem like an anticlimax.
Over 3,000 cc's, $1,000 in plaque, a cheque for $14,000, car number 05.
Barbara Holden dealer team, Noel Richards, Matt Phillip and Peter Brock.
looked at the ingredients for success, number one, the Commodore was a remarkably strong, comfortable car for that sort of terrain. It did perform better than what we thought it would, and we had pretty high expectations anyway. The cars are remarkably good.
And someone said, are we going to come first, second and third? And I said to the service crews, well, if you blokes can come first, second and third, I'll drop my DAX on the dais.
Some men climb mountains. Others go out in the bright afternoon to kill the bulls. In 2 short weeks in the Australian spring of 1979, there were things of a similar special glory.